Oh, good thing I noticed. I didn't adjust my stuff. For some reason, my Ableton trims the first couple seconds off of the theme song clip every time, and I have to manually adjust it. I don't know why it does that. And it also defaults to this warp setting. Delightful. And it's clocking. Oh, brother. Gonna be one of those days. Come on. Right there it goes, finally. Let's go there. That looks good. Moving on. Good. Good. Great. Wonderful. All right, now I'm ready. Try not to make so much noise. Stop hitting things in the opening. Punk.
You forget your name? That's Chris Scalzo. I'm Matt Howell.
I just totally blanked. I'm like, what am I talking about?
You created a hostile work environment for me here. That's what you get. It's karma.
All right, here we go. Chris Scalzo here with
Matt Howell.
On this episode of The First Run, Matt and I are going to discuss the return of the Saw franchise with Jigsaw. Matt, it's been about 7 years, 10 years in the Saw timeline, and we're back. And then we're going to move on to another just great thriller. We're going to talk about Michael Fassbender and the Snowman, which I was initially kind of excited about to talk about earlier this year. And then I saw it. And then we're also going to wrap up our Halloween top fives, because it is November, with our 5 favorite supernatural movies, which is, I guess, is about as wide open as you can get as subject. So there's a lot to get through, Maddie. Let's go ahead and hear a clip from. Let's hear a clip from Jigsaw.
Now the game's simple. The best ones are. You want mercy? Play by the rules.
Any identification on the victim?
He's a beast.
But Jigsaw has been dead for 10 years.
It's not him. Can't be.
This was on the body.
The truth will set you free.
All right, Matt. So all the stuff you love about the Saw franchise is back. right? You got all the really gross gore stuff. You have all the really convoluted contraptions, and there's also a lot of convoluted storylines. Now, let's reset here, Matt. So the first Saw film, directed by Justin Lin, came out. When did that Bad Bear come out, Matt? 2004, right? Yep, 2004.
Okay.
And it was Lin's first film, and you can kind of see that. Not Lin, I'm sorry, James Wan. Is that racist? Am I mixing up my Asian directors?
You are mixing up your Asian directors, and you should be
James
ashamed
Wan.
of yourself.
So it's James Wan's first film, and you can kind of tell, right? Even though I think it's still to this day. Let me tell you too, Matty. I've basically rewatched all the Saw films in anticipation of this film. I thought I'd seen part 3, but I hadn't, so I started watching it last night. I'm about halfway through it. So I thought, well, I need to be an informed viewer, right? Because part of the issue as I'm watching these things is how convoluted they are. And then they have these little reveal scenes right near the end of the film where they kind of tie everything together and show you what really happened and why and who's responsible and all that jazz. So Juan in the first film, there's a little bit of that, but not as much. And you have Daniel Glover, you got Carrie Ellis, and it's about the two guys trapped in the bathroom, and there's other ancillary things too. Shawnee Smith's character is introduced, and she plays a larger role throughout the rest of the 4 or 5 films, whatever it is. So I got to say, Matt, do you recall the first film? How do you feel about it? Do you think it deserves the derision, I should say, that it gets? Is it that bad? Because I got to tell you, I thought it was fine as a horror film for what it was. It's fine, but I think things really go off the rails after that.
From what I recall of the first film, it was a small budget film, kind of came out of nowhere. It was, for better or for worse. I think we can distinctly say for worst for starting off a subgenre of porn that nobody really we didn't think that we really needed, but there was obviously an audience out there for, which is disturbing, something to say about society. But I remember catching all the early reviews, like this is like something no horror movie you've ever seen. So of course I was totally about it. I wanted to go see this thing, and I'm with you. I mean, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't. It was fine. It was fine. Like, and it was, it was like, okay, that's what it is. But I mean, it had Carrie Elways. I don't know if because we had Carrie Elways in it, I was cutting it a lot of slack. But it was an okay movie, and it kind of, while it had these whole trap contraptions and stuff like that, they weren't so elaborate where like it was like basically, Kevin from Home Alone grew up to be a serial killer kind of thing. So it was fine.
And the key trap really is just two guys stuck with chains around their legs in the bathroom, right? That's the focus of the film. Then they have the head thing, and some other stuff, but it's not as crazy as it gets in the rest of the films, where it's just not possible for this guy to pull this stuff off. It's not. So in the latest film, we've jettisoned. There's a character that's introduced. Probably, I think it's episode. It's the 3rd film in the series where you introduced a cop named Hoffman, played by Costas Mandylor, and he kind of becomes a Jigsaw acolyte, and he takes over after Jigsaw dies. And thankfully, we don't get him in this film, because I got to tell you, watching these other movies, he is just this weird kind of sweaty, hulking mass of just horribleness. Not just because of the characters betraying, but just his presence on the screen is just not, I don't know. He's unlikable. And I think it's just generally, I don't think it's anything to do with the script or his acting. I think maybe it's more how the films are shot too. It's one of the things I appreciated about this film is that they mostly jettisoned how dark and dreary and the sickening kind of green-brown palette that all the other films have. And Wan's film doesn't really have it either. It's only when Lionsgate runs with the other sequels where it has this just gross kind of brown-green film across the thing. And it's also the most sparsely populated city in the country. If you watch any of these things, it's like when they're at the police station, there's never more than 3 cops there. It's the weirdest thing. It's clearly they're just saving money on casting. They won't even spend some for extras, but it's what you're just walking through this world that they've created where it's just always dark, everything is miserable, and there's only a couple people in this whole city. There's like, I guess it's notable, except for the one, I think it's 3D, the final chapter that opens up at a outside a department store, and there's probably 30 people there, which is probably the most that have ever been in a single scene of this series. But so in this latest film, they jettisoned that for the most part, which I think is good. They don't have Hoffman, which I think is good. But really, Matt, it's just more, but it's just kind of more of the same. Though I think it's probably the best sequel out of all of them.
Yeah.
That's not really saying much. It's still just as convoluted as the other ones. It's not scary. It's not.
No, it's not scary.
We're just going from gross set piece to gross set piece. And then again, we have the dumb twists at the end that just don't work. The people in this thing are just fodder. They're just there to be abused and tortured. That's the only role they serve in this film. And I mean, yeah, it's just more of the same. Maybe it's better directed than any of the other previous installments. It looks better, but that's about it. And if you're into the gore stuff, I think the gore effects in this are particularly well done. I will admit, particularly the laser cutter at the end. But still,
that was kind of awesome.
But I mean, overall, it's just not. It's like I said, it's the best sequel in the franchise, but it's faint praise at best.
Yeah.
Am I wrong, Matt? What do you feel? What do you feel?
No, you're not wrong. And I will say I saw I saw 1. I think I ended up getting these in a blind buy pack where I got Saw 1 and Saw 2 together. I watched them both, and I've never really felt the need to watch another Saw film again. It's the same kind of thing with like a Hostel. You know, I watched the first Hostel, and then I basically said, you know, I don't know if I ever never see another one of these, I'm okay. But so I don't know any of the background. I don't know any of the the reveals, how shocking they were supposed to be or whatever. And I was fine with it. I would say this. I mean, in Saw's defense, and I can't believe I'm going to say in Saw's defense, but it knows what it is. It knows what its audience wants, and it delivers on those things competently. You know,
True.
For compared to a movie we're going to talk about a little later, you know, it's tight. It gives you what you want. You know, right? It's not scary. I mean, but it's only scary in the sense of it's tense. You're waiting for, okay, what is the clever, impossibly clever trap that's going to happen now? And what is the gruesome outcome that we're going to witness going to be? And, you know, that's kind of where the tension lies. And I think that's all it's really trying to do. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not a great movie it's not even really a good movie by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, it is what it is, and it does what it does competently, and it does it all right. So, I mean, if you're into this kind of thing, it seems to be a worthy addition to this series.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to describe it. As I said, they're all available outside of obviously the newest one. They're all available on Netflix right now, which is how I've been watching them.
Okay.
And as I said, I'm halfway through part 3, which is actually, you know, it's not terrible either. So far it's one of the better sequels. The rest of them are just, well, they're all horrible, but it's just, yeah. If this is what you're looking for, then it's going to be a winner, and you're going to be happy you saw it. So far, this is, I believe, the least successful in the franchise as well. I mean, this thing is not doing well at all. So
I went and saw this thing on a Friday afternoon, and I was literally the only person in the movie theater. So
yeah, it seems the affection for Jigsaw may have finally abated, that this might be the end of the series.
Right.
And I'm cool with that. I think 8 films is enough.
8 is enough?
Yes. You know, as a little kid, I was told I looked like Adam Rich.
No.
I even have a haircut. It's actually, go to my Facebook page. You can see that, man. There's a picture of me in my Hulk t-shirt with my Adam Rich haircut.
I'm going to check that out. I'm going to go check that out.
So, all right. Where you coming down on Jigsaw? What's your grade?
I feel like I have to temper the grade slightly just because of it is what it is, and we know what it is. So I think comparing it to its series and comparing it to its genre, or its niche of the genre, I'm gonna give it a C. you know, there were times I was entertained. You know, I was kind of like, oh crap, what is, you know, when the various things were happening, I was like, you know, tense, just waiting for some horrible, horrible thing to happen. So, I mean, and that's the whole point of the movie. So I'm going to give it a C. I mean, the whole kind of denouement and how it all pieces together and all that kind of stuff. I was like, all right, dude, all right. You're trying way too hard here. But, you know, for the most part, it was what I wanted and it worked.
No, yeah, I think that's entirely right. That's basically what I had as well. Which means I think the other sequels I'd probably give D's. They're just, but yeah. So maybe I should do that since I've watched them all. Do a quick little write up or a little separate show where I go through each one of them. Spend like 5 minutes per Saw film. But what do I say? It's just like a bunch of people got tortured. It was gross. Let's move on. All right, if you had a chance to see Jigsaw, shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts. I got to tell you, Matt, if I don't score this with on a curve, I'd probably go D.
Yeah.
But a qualified review in the franchise and the horror genre, I think that's fair. All right. Blu-ray and DVD this upcoming Tuesday, Matt, November 7th. Criterion is giving us Katharine Hepburn, Jimmy Stewart, and Cary Grant in The Philadelphia Story on Blu-ray. Includes an all-new 4K digital restoration. I'm really excited about this one. This is an absolute classic film, and you can pick it up on Blu. In fact, Barnes & Noble has their 50% off sale going on right now. And it runs through the end of the month. Scream Factory is giving us Darkman 2 and Darkman 3 on Blu-ray. I know you're looking forward to those. This is where Arnold Vosloo, the mummy from the Universal Brendan Fraser mummy movies, takes over as Darkman. Part 2 is The Return of Durant, and Part 3 is Die, Darkman, Die, featuring Jeff Fahey as your bad guy. You have a new audio commentary by the director on both films, and some other special features. But if you're a fan of those sequels, and they're straight-to-DVD action films, and they're not terrible, man. They're not terrible. They're not good, but you know, for pulpy B superhero or action films, they're not terrible. What else, Matt? Ingrid Goes West, a film we did not get to catch up with this year, which I'm very excited to. Which is about an Instagram stalker played by Aubrey Plaza. It's coming out. Includes audio commentary by the director and writers and Aubrey Plaza. Some deleted scenes with commentary as well. So we'll definitely be checking that one out, I think, at some point. The Glass Castle, the latest film with Brie Larson and director Destin Daniel Cretton, who directed her in one of this show's favorite films, Short Term 12. This is their second pairing together. Chronicling the adventures of an eccentric, resilient, and tight-knit family, The Glass Castle is a remarkable story of unconditional love. Larson brings Jeanette Wall's best-selling memoir to life as a young woman who, influenced by the joyfully wild nature of her deeply dysfunctional father, played by Woody Harrelson, find the fiery determination to carve out a successful life on her own terms. A little indie film, Matt, that kind of came and went. It was supposed to be like a big hit, they were thinking, but it was here for like a week or two and gone. Patty Cakes. You remember hearing about Patty Cakes at all? So it's a coming-age story straight out of Jersey. An unlikely rapper finds her voice as a one-of-a-kind hip-hop legend in the making in Patty Cakes. So that's supposed to be pretty good. And I'd like to check it out at some point. I think it may hit the Netflix or something. So if it eventually it does, we should check it out. It's supposed to be pretty good. And then finally, Matt, your straight-to-DVD pick of the week. I'm going with Satan's Cheerleaders. Benedict High School's cheerleaders aren't shy and sweet, Matt. The football team knows them well. And Billy, the school's disturbed janitor, would like to. In the locker room, the girls shower and dress, unaware of their evil eyes, which secretly watch them. Of the evil eyes. They don't know that a curse has been placed on their clothing. Because you can curse clothing. And they don't know that their trip to the first big game of the season might sideline them for eternity. Will a cheerleader succumb to the dark ritual of sexual sacrifice and death that's been plotted for them? Only those who dare watch will know. It's one of these grindhouse 1970s drive-in films. So, Satan's Cheerleaders. Matt, what should we be streaming this week? Any suggestions?
Ooh, boy, it seems to be slim pickings on the streaming department. There's nothing that's super awesome, so I'm gonna suggest a train wreck, Chris. So Neil Blomkamp, right, wrote the.
Yep.
the widely critically acclaimed District 9, which we on the show really enjoyed, although it started to get a little heat for kind of its stealth, perpetuation of racial stereotypes through aliens, stand-ins for apartheid. And we saw
wasn't that the whole point of what he was doing. I thought he was kind of.
It is, but I think they're not only saying, I think they're not saying that he's criticizing it so much as that he's, he may be preaching some of its benefits and at the same time. So
I missed that.
Yeah, apparently that's what they say. But of course, I'm not South African and I don't know all the nuances of this stuff. So I will trust their judgment, I suppose. And then we saw Elysium, which had its serious flaws, had some really cool action scenes into it. But it was not a great movie. So what's available on Netflix now is Chappie. Chappie is the first robot with human feelings, and he's innocent and scared. And he gets involved with a computer programmer and a couple of South African hooligans played by the insane pop group Der Antwoord. And everything about this film is so ridiculous that it's almost unbearable, but you have to watch it as a train wreck exercise. It's got the Blomkamp, violence out of nowhere action scenes, which are always kind of fun to watch. But this thing is just, I don't even know what he was trying to say, why he thought this thing was a good idea. But I like to inflict this upon people to watch it just because I want them to say, what the hell did I just watch? And that is my recommendation for this week, Chappie.
I don't have the disdain for Chappie some people do. I don't know if it's more that the issues. I think the special effects in this thing are incredible. You haven't seen, how seamless the effects are in this thing, you wouldn't believe it. It is absolutely, I think, cutting edge, top of the line special effects in this thing. It's almost worth seeing for that alone. And then Hugh Jackman gets to play a bad guy, which is always fun. So,
but at the same time, Der Antwoord. So let's just keep that in mind. DJ Ninja.
It's a fair point. All right, Matt. You and I went back and forth on this. There's a couple things I want to bring up before we move on. First off, let's talk about the difficult stuff first. All right.
Okay.
Kevin Spacey has officially been fired from House of Cards.
Yes.
Netflix says they would not move on as long as Spacey was a part of the production because there have been certain allegations made against the actor about his inappropriate conduct, his assault and molestation of boys typically hovering around the age of 14.
Right.
And this just goes back decades. And also now there's been cast and crew members of House of Cards that say he has been sexually aggressive and inappropriate as well on set. And listen, and of course there's the Brett Ratner stuff, which it's weird how I feel about this. And I don't know if this makes me a horrible person.
Yeah.
Because I hate Brett Ratner. So
yes.
I'm happy that his career may be over.
Yes. You're crowing over that and you believe every horrible thing that's coming out immediately.
And I believe the Spacey stuff. I do. Yeah. I don't want to, but I do because I've been a fan of his work over the years. And we're really getting to that tipping point, Matt. We've probably well past it, and I just refuse to look at myself in the mirror and accept it. What we're going to do about this in regards to separating the artist from the work. We got Casey Affleck, who's going to be presenting an Academy Award next year to the Best Actress winner.
I know. That's so bad.
I don't know how that's going to happen. I wonder if the actress will refuse to accept. Right. Or if he may gracefully step out of it and have the previous year's winner do it. I think that's probably the most likely scenario. If Casey is at all self-aware, that's what he will do. But basically, I don't... Listen, if this stuff is true, and it certainly appears so, and there's no cause not to believe these people, that Spacey should be done. And there's no point in seeing him again in anything.
Right.
And And I hope the entire industry just gets rid of all of these people. And man, I don't know what it's going to take and what needs to happen, but and I'm just glad that this is happening in a way, at least that the people are speaking out, you know, that we've finally kind of fostered and created an environment, the royal we, you know, but that people feel comfortable to speak out and stand up for themselves. And I think it's great. And I'm happy that's happening. And if this means that we're not, you know, that Hollywood is basically blown up and we lose a bunch of people, then I'm all for it. Yeah. Whatever we're going to do to clean this up, sign me up.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we definitely have to clean up, especially the stuff, people that are still in business and then are going forward and all that kind of stuff. I mean, what's, you know, when you look at some of the stuff, it's like look at like the Dustin Hoffman thing. I mean, it was whatever it was 30, 40 years ago. And it was one person, and he's not even saying it didn't happen. He's saying it may have happened, as far as he's aware. And if it did, he was apologizing and all that kind of stuff. But I know it's like a matter of, I think we're gonna see like this kind of scorched earth kind of thing come through where there's gonna be like nobody left, and it's gonna be like, okay, next we're gonna be hearing about, I don't know, who are the most beloved, you know, we're gonna get like something on Martin Scorsese, and now he's not gonna make any films anymore. And now, well, I hope these things are not true, and if they are true, obviously, you know, they need to be addressed, and you know, they deserve whatever they get. But it's like, I'm just waiting for like literally like there's nobody left in Hollywood to make any of these films, whether they're producers or directors or actors or whatever else.
Well, then how far does the impact wave go, right? How ancillary, how far do we want to go? Because Quentin Tarantino obviously knew what was going on with Harvey Weinstein, and he said as much. Right. He heard rumors, right? And he chose to ignore it, I guess,
right?
Or he just didn't pursue it. I don't know. He worked with Rose McGowan, right? He was a producer on the Robert Rodriguez film, the Grindhouse one, Planet Terror.
Yep.
And I don't see. I just.
Well, I mean, I think she was even dating Robert Rodriguez at the time, and I think she told him, but because Weinstein was the one who wanted to sell his movie, he kind of got her to go along with, okay, let's just work with this guy and I'll keep you as separated from him as possible just to get the movie released. And that was Rodriguez.
That's just, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know.
So that's what I mean. It's the whole thing is just fucked up. I mean, obviously, explicit tag. It's how far, I guess what'll be really interesting is to see how far the public's capacity to you know, forgive is. I mean, insofar as, you know, yes, like the Weinsteins and the Spaceys and, you know, the Ratners, those people obviously, you know, they deserve whatever they're going to get because it's being very unequivocal kind of thing. But just kind of in the fury of the moment, I mean, it's like, do you just, you know, and again, depending on what it is that he knows, but I mean, do you bring down Tarantino because he suspected that there were rumors and he thought that they were true, but he didn't do anything about it? Is that something that, you know, we just obviously we don't see any more Quentin Tarantino movies kind of thing? I don't know. I don't know how far that goes.
Yeah. And just to clarify,
because, I mean,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I mean, I'm just saying that
you start.
I'm just saying that obviously this is obviously so pervasive in Hollywood, and even as people who are not in Hollywood who just follow it, you know, through our love of film and all the gossip, and not really gossip in the personal lives, but the gossip of we're trying to get more about the films that we want to see and the films that we love. These are still stories that you hear, and we've heard them for years. So, I mean, honestly, I don't know how a single person who works in that industry, especially as they go up in power, while I fully believe that there's plenty of people who didn't participate themselves, didn't know either whether it was through rumor or secondhand sources, or maybe even firsthand sources that these kinds of things were going on. So that how far do you go? I mean, I can't imagine that every single director that we've ever talked about, or actor that we've ever talked about, or actress that we ever talked about, even if it didn't happen to any of them, or they didn't experience it firsthand, they all knew. But
let's be clear, we're not equivocating on this, Matt. Like, I don't want it to sound like we feel like, well, you know, we don't want it to get too far because we don't want people that we like impacted by it.
No, we don't want it to get too far. I'm not saying we shouldn't. I'm just saying, yeah, I think we're saying we want the people who are directly responsible to, you know, face their justice and be exposed and be removed from the industry and face whatever criminal or civil charges that they can be brought against them. Even if it's no more than being blackballed for whatever reason, then that's if that's the best we can do, that's the best we can do. But then I think after you kind of get through with all that, I'm curious to see how the rest of it plays out. Yeah,
we'll see. Yeah, another thing too is I think I don't want to lose track of. I'm afraid sometimes that happens. Is that everybody focuses on Weinstein, right? Because it had to get that big. It had to be that destructive a human being for people to finally speak up and for this to make the waves that it has. It's also the little stuff that happens every single day that we shouldn't stand for. And guys, just in general, look yourselves in the mirror as well. I have. Have you ever thought or done it? Have you ever done anything that could have been inappropriate at some point? I think that's the key thing. Is it's easy for people and guys and allies to speak out and say that Weinstein guy is evil, but just take a minute. Not that that's say you have done anything, but just kind of go through your past and think about it. Have you ever been inappropriate to a girl, to a woman? Just think about it.
Yeah. I'm sure everyone has. I'm sure we all have. So, you know, we all have at some point. It's just a matter of yeah.
All right. Damn it. You know what though? I think they should listen. If any series can move on, it's going to be House of Cards. You kill off Spacey's character off scene or with a double in the first episode. They've already been working towards Claire as president anyway. I got to tell you, at this point, that's the show I want to see anyway. So I hope they figure that out because I'd hate to see all these other people lose their jobs because of the actions of one person.
Right.
And it doesn't appear like the set was fostered this way, though clearly I guess some stuff was put up with Spacey. Bo Williamson said he didn't really, who was the showrunner, or at least he was, he's a creator, along with Fincher, appeared not aware of what had happened. But you've built it up where you can still run, and I'd love to see Robin Wright continue and see what happens with that show.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. Well, on that cheery note, everybody who's listening, man and woman, think of all the horrible shit that you've done to other people for going back to your lives and really reflect on not doing those things again.
Yeah. All right. So let's cheer things up, Matt, because I have a victory.
You have a victory. I know, right? This is bullshit.
We have our Rotten Tomatoes score contest. And let's not forget, too, we do have the summer bracket thing, but we didn't see a few of the films, Matt. So I think starting next week, we should pick that up. Watch the two films we missed, which I think are, I have it here somewhere. The House. And there was one other. Oh, here we go. I do have it right here. It was The House and The Mummy. Tom Cruise's The Mummy. We're not going to bother with Transformers because there's no point. There's no way.
Whatever it was up against, it couldn't have won.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Impossible. All right, so fine.
So we should pick those two up and then wrap up the bracket. But the key here, Thor, Ragnarok, as you can see it backwards on your camera. Matt had a score of 88%. I had 90. The score is locked in at noon on Friday, and Thor is at 93%. We're doing Price is Right rules. So at 90%, which is the closest without going over, I win that round.
Yep, and at one point it was at 96%, and I was baffled. There was no way I thought that this would be the highest rated Marvel movie ever, even higher than Iron Man, which is sitting at 94. So now this is the second highest rated Marvel movie after Iron Man, but before Spider-Man: Homecoming, which I just wasn't expecting because it's a Thor movie. No matter how much I was looking forward to seeing it. So
now things look good for Matt, folks, going forward though. The next two films, The Killing of a Sacred Deer is currently at 77% on Rotten Tomatoes. Matt had a 62%.
Yep.
I had 78.
Oh, see, he's gone over.
So that looks good for Matt. And Murder on the Orient Express. You got another week on that one. That's currently at 70. I was at 63%. Matt at 65.
All right.
So you currently are ahead on those two.
Okay.
We'll see if it bears out.
Kind of hoping. I'm glad we're not going to get a clean sweep here. I was getting a little worried here.
Yeah.
The game would be over before it started.
All right. So let's. I guess that wraps that up. Let's move on, Matt, and let's talk about the Snowman. Let's hear it.
Oh, no, let's do that.
A woman vanished last night. We just found the body.
Prince?
And the head is missing. He calls himself the Snowman Killer. He's completely insane.
I'm thinking that he's going after women that he disapproves of.
The only thing we know for sure is that he's playing games with us.
We need a way to lure him out.
Be careful. We don't know what we're dealing with.
Matt, they don't know what they're dealing with, but we do. Why don't you tell the folks at home and on the road, what is the Snowman about?
The Snowman is, and I don't even think this is a real spoiler at this point because it happens in the first scene of the movie. Essentially, a young man witnesses his mother committing suicide, and then flash forward to, where are they? They're in Sweden, right? There is Oslo, Sweden. Yes, Norway, Sweden.
Hey, Sweden.
They're in Sweden.
They're Norwegian.
Flash forward.
They're in Norway. Oh, actually, that's where it's
Norway.
shot. Hold on. You keep going now.
Okay. So anyway, they're in some Scandinavian country. It's cold. And essentially, Fassbender plays a detective who's, the typical hard-boiled detective, has a drinking problem, has no family, has a broken home life kind of thing. But he's an excellent detective, gets pulled back into this case where a serial killer is killing women by cutting their heads off and then burying at least part of their body, or at least leaving a calling card of a snowman. And then, of course, he sends taunting letters to the police saying, who he is and that they can try and catch him. And he brings on a young hothead cop with him, and they go out and try and find the killer.
Yep. Norway. Okay. Yeah. So that's it. It's horrible. Let's move on. Yeah, so this thing is dumb. It is one of the dumbest films I've ever seen. It is boring as it's another an unrelenting bore. All the scenes feel stitched together. It's like it's just horribly edited. It's horribly directed. It is just a nightmare. The problem is too, and then the big reveal at the end of who our Snowman Killer is. It's so frustrating and unearned when they do the big. By the way, it's this guy. And
right.
Like, what? And Val Kilmer is in this thing doing something. I don't know really what.
But I totally enjoyed Val Kilmer doing his I don't know what. I did not know what the hell he was trying to pull off, but it was awesome.
He's grunting a lot, and he's gnashing his teeth, and and then I think this film perfectly wraps up I think the perfect. Let me see. How would I put it? I think the perfect distillation of this film is the Chloe Sevigny scene, where our killer kills Chloe's character, and then Harry Hole. Which, come on, Harry Hole. I guess in the book it's actually Ola or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
But of course they Americanize it and make it Harry Hole, which is just unrelentingly stupid. But so Chloe Sevigny gets killed, right? And then our detectives show up, and Chloe Sevigny comes out. He's all, I'm her twin sister. I'm like, at first I actually thought for a split second though, Matt, that it was just really bad editing.
Right.
That scene was supposed to happen first.
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of faith I had in this thing. It is, and what's so frustrating about it is that I think this could have been a good film. It's just that every single decision that was made was the wrong decision. I laughed out loud at least half a dozen times watching this thing, but how ridiculous it is. And they have the audacity to set it up for a sequel.
They sure do.
Well, I mean, am I wrong? What do you think, Matt?
Well, so this is based off of the crime series by Joe Nesbo, which is like the Norwegian, Stieg Larsson. He's got this character Harry Hole. He's got dozens of novels based on him and his exploits. So I can understand why they're trying to set it up as a sequel. I don't even think this is the first one in that series. And I actually know somebody who read it very recently, the book, without seeing the movie, and they actually said it was actually really good. So take that for what you will. I think this is a case of there was too much going on in the book, and they didn't really know how to handle it. I don't think the Snowman book is the first one in this series, so I think they're probably trying to pull in other aspects from other books to try and make it make more sense, to lay down backstory of what's going on for Harry Hole. And like you said, it doesn't work. And the real shame of this film is that the actors in this are great to good actors. They're usually really fun to watch. I mean, we've got Fassbender, we've got Charlotte Gainsbourg. It was nice to see Val Kilmer get some work, even though I didn't know what the hell he was freaking doing, but it was still entertaining to watch.
You got J.K. Simmons?
Yeah, J.K. Simmons, who was, can I also please, they all live in Norway, and I love how none of them tried to change and put on a Norwegian accent, except for J.K. Simmons. Everybody else has an American or a British accent, and it's completely incongruous for the whole thing. But yeah, it's just a mess. The movie, it has to hit these plot points, and that's all it is. Everything is in service of this plot points. There's no real character development. The reveals that are supposed to be the fun part of these type of movies, where it's like, oh shit, that's what happened. They were just boring. Like, it's like, all right, I guess that's where we're going with this. And yeah, there's literally nothing about it that was suspenseful or even kept you guessing from a whodunit perspective. And it was just dull. This may be bad to the Norwegian people, but it was as dull and lifeless as their winter landscape is really what it was going on right now. So
that's what one of my final note was going to be, was it's lifeless and sloppy. That's exactly what I heard.
Yeah. So I don't know. And here's the thing. We saw two bad movies this week. Jigsaw is not good, but at least Jigsaw knows what it was, and I was at least kind of entertained through part of it. This, I was just like waiting for this to end. I was like, should I just get up and walk out and just tell Chris I saw the rest of it and just pretend, because I could fill it in.
Yeah, at least Jigsaw was competently made. This is just a disaster from start to finish. And you said you totally waste a great cast.
Yeah.
And this could have been like a Silence of the Lambs type thing, Matt. And it's just
not
horrible.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like Nesbo, he is one of the kind of crime authors for that genre of fiction right now, and he has been for like the past decade. So they really messed up his books badly, and that's a shame.
That's gotta kill you inside, right?
Yeah.
You think this could be it? This is your ticket to to millions and millions of dollars. They're going to adapt your movies. You got a whole series. It's going to be a franchise. Your kids and your grandkids and their grandkids are going to be set. And then you see this turd, and you just got to be like,
all right, well, I guess his next book is going to be about a serial killer who killed a bunch of Hollywood producers and actors. That's I guarantee you that's what it's going to be about.
Sorry, Nesbo. Sorry. And maybe they'll go cold for a few years. You can come back and try again. Maybe
they can try to resurrect Harry one more time.
There you go. All right, Matt, give me a grade. Snowman.
I'm going to say D. I'm going to give this a D.
Really?
There's just really nothing to recommend it at all. Other than, the scenery's pretty. The scenery's pretty. The cinematography, some of it's kind of pretty. I'll say that.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I actually had D- and I crossed it out and actually gave it the F, which I don't think I've ever done.
You went the F. Wow.
I don't know if I've ever given anything an F, but it's this thing.
I want to. Watching this film, it made me want to ask. I think at the end of the year, when we do our 10 best, we should pick out what our worst film was for the year. And I guess this is a leading contender for you.
Clearly. Yeah, maybe I'll revisit that as a D- because it was pretty at times. But it was just so frustrating and it made me so angry.
Yeah.
All right. Shoot us an email, feedback@thefirstrun.com. What did you think of The Snowman? Fassbender is not having a good year. He's had a rough run lately in general. So,
but doesn't that always seem to be the case? Like there's some actor that we really like, and then he gets into something popular, like in his case, Magneto, and then he just does a bunch of really crap, just crap
Between the Oceans, Assassin's Creed, Alien Covenant.
Like, why in the hell would he do Assassin's Creed? At least he was good in Alien Covenant. He was good in Prometheus. I liked the character of David, but Assassin's Creed, Mike? I mean, what did you need? You needed a new house in Malibu? Like, what the hell is that all about?
X-Men Apocalypse was not good. He's in Dark Phoenix again. All right, let's move on, Matt.
Let's
talk about the 5 best supernatural films after this.
Mm-hmm.
The dining room table spun in a counterclockwise direction.
I don't think that one happened, no.
The toilet seat lid banged up and down.
No.
Did the bed levitate?
Yeah, with me on it.
Spontaneous recurrent psychokinesis. Oh, boy. Oh, this could be the worst case I've ever seen. Oh, yeah, this is bad. Okay, well, folks, I can do a clearance, but it's not going to be cheap. Although I do offer a 6-month guarantee.
How much?
$249.95. There is a 30% surcharge for making a house call after midnight. Then there's vehicle, gas, so I'd say the whole thing is going to set you back somewhere in the neighborhood of $450.
All right, Matt, that's a clip from The Frighteners. Peter Jackson.
I haven't seen that movie in forever. I'm going to have to catch up with that.
Yeah, did I buy it on Blu-ray? I think I did. I've always been a big fan of that film. But like you, I haven't watched it 10 years, maybe more.
Yeah, maybe longer.
So, obviously did not make my list.
I hate it when we can put that we haven't watched things in terms of decades and it's still not even that. Not even. We could probably even go further if we're being.
Oh yeah, that's I do that when I say, oh yeah, I graduated high school 20 years. No. A little longer than that. All right. Yeah. So let's talk about what we think are the 5 best or favorite supernatural films. Man, I got a few cliches on here, but that's fine, And then I'm not even sure if my number 1 counts as supernatural, so you'll have to tell me. And if it doesn't, then we'll redo the list. I'll redo my thing. So I'll go first. We'll give you the ultimate number 1. My number 5 is M. Night Shyamalan's The Sixth Sense. Our little buddy sees dead people. Bruce Willis. Spoiler: it's been 20 years, people. If you don't know this by now, I can't help you. Bruce Willis is his psychotherapist helping the kid, except Bruce Willis is dead the entire time. And he doesn't realize.
What? That is the most amazing twist I've ever heard.
One of the great twist films of all time. I was running a movie theater at the time this came out, Matt, and it was incredible. Like people would walk out, they'd be like, "Oh, that was great! That was great!" And it was a whole culture. Like you couldn't talk about what the twist ending was, which of course just drove up sales. And a great performance by Bruce Willis in that film. Still, I think it's a classic. It's really, really good. So Haley Joel Osment too has moved on. If you haven't seen him, he's played Slow Joey in some classic episodes of Comedy Bang Bang. You can check that out on Netflix as well. But still, Sixth Sense still holds up to this day. A great little film. It's my number 5.
Didn't make my list. Although it is an honorable mention. It is. And know what kind of ruined it for me? And this is blasphemous, I know, but I actually saw Fight Club and its twist ending before I saw The Sixth Sense because they came out at the same time.
That's right.
And then when I saw The Sixth Sense, I was like, I saw this like last week. I ain't impressed. So that's kind of how that went. So
that is insane.
I know. All right, so my number 2. Now, people will argue that this is a zombie movie. I think you might even have it on your. Oh, I'm sorry, number 5. So yeah, I'm just gonna pick random order, Chris. So I'm gonna keep guessing.
Do it. Okay, mix it up, brother. Go ahead.
It's my number 5. People will argue this is a zombie movie, but I think that is patently false. I even think Chris may have put it on one of his zombie lists. But it's The Evil Dead 2. Is my 5th favorite supernatural movie. So this is about some teens go out for some wholesome and not so wholesome fun into a very forbidding cabin in the woods where obviously no one in their right mind would go. An unseen supernatural force dubbed the Force infects them and kill a few of them with spiritual evil, and they become possessed rampaging monsters where one man and his boomstick and his chainsaw arm is left to fend off and save the world. Of course, that is one Ashley Williams. This is where, Raimi really leaned into the horror / comedy. And again, this is one of the few times in my opinion where it actually works. It is extremely gory, but at the same time, it is so over the top gory that it's really fun to watch. And if you haven't seen The Evil Dead, it is something that you absolutely have to watch. And it's funny 1 second. 1 second it's funny, and then it just gets absolutely insanely creepy. Like, when they're all the monsters in the cabin are screaming for Dead by Dawn. That freaked me out as a kid. That was scary. But then of course, he's giving the 3 Stooges eye poke to a zombie earlier on. So there you go.
You just said zombie. Yeah.
Deadite, excuse me.
My number 4. Interesting pick. My number 4 is see if I can do it. Hold on, ready?
Yeah.
I can't do it. I get too much. Hold on. Try again. I can't do it. It's The Judge. It's The Grudge. The Judge.
Okay.
The Robert Downey Jr. film, The Judge. No, it's The Grudge, the Asian horror remake starring Sarah Michelle Gellar. I don't know what it is. That thing creeped me out when she does that guttural, voice, and then she's walking backward, just walking down the stairs, and it's just that thing just creeped me the hell out. That is, I think out of all the Asian imports, I think that was my favorite. It's not the best Asian horror film, but I think it might be my favorite import of the group. I enjoy it. I think it's scarier than The Ring, but I haven't seen The Ring in 30 years now that we're talking about it. But yeah. So 40? Has it been 40, 50 years? So I really like
120?
I think it's a silent film, The Ring, right? So The Grudge, though, is probably my favorite remake of all of them. Okay. So if you haven't seen it.
Is that the one where Sarah Michelle Gellar gets into bed and like she sees her covers moving and she looks underneath and the creepy little ghost thing is down there underneath her covers? Is that it?
Yeah, crawling up.
That was freaking scary. Yeah, that was scary.
I get goosebumps just thinking about it now. That thing is terrifying. So it's my number 4.
All right, so this is my ode to something that's extremely recent. My number 4 is James Wan's The Conjuring, a PG-13 haunted house ghost story, loosely based on what we could also define as a loosely true story about the haunting in Southington, Connecticut, our local stomping grounds, where essentially a family moves into an old funeral home. One of them, he is vulnerable and starts getting attacked by the various spirits in the house. And this is really, I think this film really kicked off the recent trend of these kind of PG-13 horror movies that are not gory, but they're still really creepy, and they're really effective, and they're really good at building up tension and giving you those kind of release jump scares, which you don't really see a lot of anymore, or at least you hadn't for the past few years. And I kind of appreciate that go to form, especially if they're done really, really well. And that whole clap scene throughout the house, that's probably one of the scariest scenes in a horror film in probably the last 2-3 years.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's a good pick. Didn't quite make the cut for me. But it also reminds me of another honorable mention I had, and hopefully I'm not blowing your list up, but The Orphanage, the Spanish horror film.
Yeah.
The scene where they play they do the thing where they have to hide, and then the kids slowly move up, and you look and they stop, and as they get closer and closer. That was terrifying as well. If you haven't seen The Orphanage, ooh baby, you don't like scary kids, that's the one for you. All right, my number 3 then. I think if I chose Evil Dead 2, I think for our zombie film, then I am exposing myself as a fraud, because my number 3 is Evil Dead.
Oh, okay.
I've actually always preferred Evil Dead over Evil Dead 2. I know it's a different film for me. I think Evil Dead is more straightforward horror. And like you said, Evil Dead 2, it's the Three Stooges meets, Possession. And it's great. I love it. But when it comes to horror films, the original will always be my favorite. Made on a shoestring budget, but still just a lot of fun. And really, I remember watching this thing at the time. It was on, I think, a USA Saturday Nightmares, Matt. And I was terrified watching this thing. Mm-hmm. And though it doesn't really hold that same sway with me now, granted, I've also watched it a dozen times, I still truly appreciate that film. So it's my number 3. And I will say, I may have talked about this in the past. I've recently, in the last couple months, watched the unrated version of the remake.
Okay.
By Fede Alvarez. It's really good.
Is it?
I think it's better than I remember watching it in the theater.
Okay.
Not just because it's the unrated version, which you can buy off of iTunes, but it's just, I don't know, I have a better appreciation for it now, and I think it's really well done. So,
all right, let's check it out then. All right, my number 3 was a film that we watched for the show a few years back, and we really had no expectations going into this, and I think we were pleasantly surprised, maybe even blown away about how good this film was. So I'm talking about The Last Exorcism. In this film, Thomas Jane, he plays kind of this huckster Southern preacher who...
It's not Thomas Jane.
Oh, it's not?
No, it's the guy who plays the partner on Better Call Saul. Oh, what's his name? Chuck's partner at the firm. Why am I blank? Patrick Fabian.
Okay, Patrick Fabian. Okay. Really? I've been thinking it was Thomas Jane for a hell of a long time here. Okay. So anyway, a guy who looks like Thomas Jane, whose name is Patrick Fabian. He is he plays a shyster lawyer, preacher.
Have you seen this movie? Have you watched?
I'm getting there. This preacher in the South who has a documentary crew following him, and he basically says that, he's tending to his flock, and a lot of these people believe that exorcism is real. So he will, have this kind of bag of tricks to kind of feed into their, what their beliefs are. He has these crosses and stuff that will emit smoke, or they'll get warm, or things that'll move by themselves. And it's all in service of this kind of act that he's putting on, with the ultimate goal thinking that, okay, if he thinks that he's actually done something, then maybe they'll start acting better, when he thinks it's really just a psychological problem kind of thing. And so it's not completely like he's trying to take advantage of these people. But he gets to a house, and the documentary crew is following him, and it becomes more and more and more apparent that what's going on in the house is real, and it's really happening. And as someone who doesn't really believe, and he doesn't really know what to do. It's all really around him trying to kind of reconnect with his faith and trying to save this young woman who's obviously possessed by some kind of evil entity. And the ending of that film is still pretty freaking effective. It was not where I expected that thing to go, and it gets really scary and intense throughout the whole thing.
Yeah,
very effective found footage movie too.
Yeah, I was going to say it's one of the better, if not the best, found footage films I think of the last 10 years, at least domestically. I think Wreck may be my favorite of them, but still, yeah, it's really good. Honorable mention for me. Avoid the sequel like the plague.
Yeah,
it is not good, but the first one is great. So there you go. Good pick, Matt. My number, where am I? Numero dos is The Exorcist.
All right.
You got the girl. She's possessed by a demon, and they come and exorcise the demon. The demon goes into one of the preachers. He kills himself, or does he? And you may have heard about it. I don't know how much to really get into it. It's The Exorcist. It's a classic. It's considered the greatest horror film of all time. I may disagree with that, but it is exceptionally well done. It is a classic. So that's my number 2.
See, I left. I intentionally left The Exorcist off because it would have been my number 1. I left it off though. I put it on the honorable mentions. It was too easy for me, but you're right. I mean, arguably, it is incredibly effective, and the reason I think it's so scary is that for millions of people in the world who are Christians and they believe in this kind of stuff, they think that this shit could actually happen, and that actually. Somebody being so convinced that it's that could happen scares me a hell of a lot more than anything else, really. So that's what I mean. And it's absolutely completely effective and terrifying. But it would be my obvious number 1, but I left it off. Mm-hmm. So my number 2 is a movie that scared the shit out of me when I was 6 years old, and I should not have been watching it. Is Steven Spielberg's Tobe Hooper's Poltergeist, so basically. Story of a young family who moves into a house in a neighborhood in a cul-de-sac in the early 80s, and then strange things start happening, and it progresses further and further and further from there. Now, say what you want, Carol Ann being sucked into the extra dimension, and they have to get into a line to go out and get her, and covered with slime, and the little woman saying this house is clean. Those kinds of things, they didn't necessarily age that great, but everything leading up to before that, with the tree and the clown and the guy's face falling off, that stuff is still very, very effective. And it's a Spielberg movie. This is obviously Spielberg's horror film, and it's fantastic.
No, it is a classic. It's on my honorable mentions list. Initially this was rated PG. Which blows my mind. I guess it was originally an R, but they petitioned to have it dropped. There was no PG-13 at the time.
Right.
So they got a PG rating out of this thing. The thing's terrifying.
It was super scary.
When the tree's knocking on the kid's window.
Or that damn clown comes out from under the bed.
No thanks. Hard pass.
Yeah.
Now this was, I'm not sure if this next one counts. It's my number 1. So it's my number 1 is a film that I don't know counts. So Matt, I'm going to let you decide.
Okay.
And it is Suspiria.
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I'm going to allow it. I think this counts. Yes.
Because are witches monsters, or are they supernatural?
I would say they're supernatural.
Okay. So you have this young girl, goes to this ballet school in Italy, and she runs afoul of a coven of witches.
Did you just drop an American movie deep cut right there on us?
I certainly did. And all of her friends are slowly killed, and she is trying to find out what's happening. But it is a kaleidoscope of color and horror. It is a gorgeous, terrifying film, an instant classic. It is currently touring the country. It's going to be, I think, in Orlando and maybe Miami here next year. So I'm anxious to go on a little road trip and check out this new 4K restored print of the director's cut of the film. I'm very excited about that. So it is one of my favorite all-time horror films. It's my numero 1 It's Suspiria. And I think, is it Vinegar Syndrome? I'm blanking on who it is. But they're releasing, no, it's not Vinegar. It's oh brother. But they're releasing a 40th anniversary Blu-ray version of it coming up. And if you buy it, Synapse, thank you. Is they have a Steelbook special edition. It's gonna run you, Matt. It's $50. But and it has a whole ton of special features, including a CD of the soundtrack. They'll release a traditional, smaller version of it later on, but you'll lose some of the features and the soundtrack. So, but there it is, my number one.
All right. So number one, and I'm surprised you haven't said it. Now, okay, so again, what would have been my number two I left off the list, and we're going to talk about it later, and I'm hoping it's on your honorable mentions at least. My number one, controversial pick. Most successful per capita film of all time. Really introduced us to the found footage genre for better or worse. And I'm talking about the Blair Witch Project.
Yep.
You either love this film or you absolutely hate it and don't get it. And just don't see and I don't say don't get it in the sense that you don't see what the appeal of it is. But this is essentially the story of a group of college kids that go out to make a documentary in the woods. They get unfathomably lost and they are stalked by an unseen supernatural entity. And this is really just the master class of improvising and making less is more out of what they had available to them. And to this day, that final scene of her going down into the basement with her buddy standing in the corner, whilst incredibly simple, is still one of the most chilling scenes you will see put to film. And the film is just, it is great. And I'm all of the complaints aside, of motion sickness and it's unclear and the acting is not great. Really, just give it a shot. I mean, it's really, it defined an entire genre, and it's really, you owe it to yourself to go out and watch it with an open mind.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's true. And there's parts of the Adam Wingard directed sequel that are really good too. I think especially in the end when they're actually in the house and we get a reveal of the Blair Witch.
Yeah.
That freaked me out.
Have you
too.
seen that he came out and said that, he started laying the thing that maybe that really wasn't even the witch. Ooh. That there's something else in the woods.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, still, I like them both, though obviously the original is much better. All right, Matt. Honorable mentions, and I think we need to talk about The Shining.
Yes, that was on the list. So let's talk about it.
The Shining. I don't know in my heart if that's a supernatural film. That's why it's not. It probably would have been my number one if I pulled the trigger and said it was supernatural. Mm-hmm. I know Stephen King's book is a ghost story, but Kubrick's film isn't as clear.
Right.
If it's more Jack Nicholson just going crazy, and Danny. Well, but Danny's got the superpowers, right? He's got the. Right. So is that supernatural?
Yes, I mean I would say.
So if I hadn't thought about that. So if that's true, then Shining would be my number one, and everything shifts up.
I would say that Danny's power is definitely real. That's definitely supernatural, and he is certainly seeing, if not the ghost, of the echoes of what's happening in the hotel in the past. So I think that also makes it supernatural. Because to me, there's no question that everything that happens in it, while Jack Nicholson is going crazy, I think the forces in the hotel are edging him along. I really do think
that's true. And Shelley Duvall sees stuff as well at the end.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot. All right. So Shining's my number one.
But see, I left it off.
Everything else shifts up.
I left it off just for the same reason I left The Exorcist off. It was kind of like one of these canonized, like, of course it would be number one or number two. Yeah.
All right. So here are my honorable mentions. Then we'll hear yours. What Lies Beneath. I'll mention stuff that you didn't mention. Don't Look Now. The Witch. I talked about The Orphanage. Devil's Backbone. You heard a clip from The Frighteners. What I think is the best Asian horror film, Pulse. The Fog, and Prince of Darkness, 2 John Carpenter films.
Okay. All right, I did have The Witch, The Shining, The Exorcist, The Sixth Sense. I put The Ring on there. We'll talk about the other Asian horror film that really kicked it off.
Yep. Sure,
that shit was scary. And Dead Body in the Closet, super unsettling.
Yes.
That's very unsettling. Drag Me to Hell, which was Sam Raimi's last one about woman being pursued by a curse and demons trying to drag her to hell. And then some controversial picks. One, I have a special affection for Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. I really liked this film when I was 13 years old, and damn it, I still like it now. And it is a very fun Z movie that is still, I think, worth a watch. And believe it or not, I'm a big fan of the Tim Burton, Johnny Depp, Christina Ricci Sleepy Hollow. I thought that was a really beautiful, creepy, atmospheric film, and I think it's worth a watch if you haven't seen it in a long time.
There you go. That's good. Good pick. All right. Well, I've exposed myself to be a fraud and an idiot. So go ahead and tell me. So
for this week, I mean, it's at least twice a month.
It's true. Just an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts on your favorite supernatural films. Would Halloween 3 count? Because I do love that movie. All right. Let us know. Next week, Matt. Well, next week. What are we talking about? It's here. Thor Ragnarok. We'll be checking that out. Matt, I'm going to be seeing The Florida Project as well, which has been one of my more anticipated films of the year. Do some research, Matt, and if you get a chance, check it out. It is fantastic. Okay. You decide, do you want to do The Room or The Mummy next week? Let me know.
Okay.
And that's it. So look us up on Twitter and Facebook and on Instagram and YouTube. You can watch the live streaming and recording of the show there. And also, of course, at the newly redesigned thefirstrun.com. That's going to be the big show this week, Matt. Let's take an extended break, and we'll see you all soon.
See ya.
Hello. Fancy seeing you here.
Orange juice? Certainly.
Now tell me you've forsaken your beloved whiskey and whiskies.
No. I just changed their color, that's all. I'm going for the pale pastel shades now. They're more becoming to me.
All right. What do you want to do? You want to bust out this focus thing, or do you want to do it tonight, tomorrow, or something? You good?
We can go now. Might as well. I got stuff to do, but I might as well wait.
As do I, but we can do it. All right. I got to go pee. I'll be back in a minute.
Okay.
Oh, he's calling. I shouldn't have said that before. Was it appropriate? Do 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 do. You there? There you are. Oh, hello. No? Maybe not. Popping some of Daddy's magic candy. Hello, hello. I don't know why I say goodbye. I say hello. Doot, 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 doot. I say I want one more. I'll do more. Get ready now. Go, cat, go. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Chris Scalzo here with
Matt Howell.
on this episode of the First Run Focus. This is episode 13? 13? We'll say 13. Who knows?
Who
It's up to you to
knows?
find out.
Sure.
We're going to discuss Stranger Things Season 2, Episode 2, as well as Mindhunter Season 1, Episode 2. Matt, we get a lot more information this week on Stranger Things in regards to what happened to 11 at the end of Season 1. In fact, we get the whole story of what happened and how she met up with... Oh, no, we didn't get how she met up with Hopper, did we? She's still in the woods at this point, right? I just watched it last night. I don't remember them meeting up. So there you go. But we get some bits and pieces of it, and it's done through flashbacks as the show progresses. It's Halloween in Hawkins, Matt. Did you catch what Nancy's and what's his name, Steve's costume was?
Of course. Yes, it was. It was Tom Cruise and Rebecca De Mornay from Risky Business.
Yes, indeed it was, which is always fun. And listen, there's a lot to cover in this week. The boys, at least a couple of them, make nice with Max, the new girl in town. They invite her to their Halloween trick-or-treating, which, of course, does not sit well with Mike. All right? He's a little disappointed. I guess he's still kind of hung up on 11 at this point. But so we're not. We've got everything is still. Our set pieces are pretty much everything's now moving in motion. There's the investigation of the pumpkins, right? So the first episode, there's some issues with one of the farmers' pumpkin patches gets killed, so they bring in one of the other farmers, and all of his pumpkin stuff is rotting and dying, and we find out that's happening to all of the pumpkin patches, Matt. So Hopper is on the investigation, trying to find out what has happened and why. What else, Matt's going on here? Things of interest. Let me tell you, we get more of whatever that shadow monster is. Do we have a name for this thing yet? You want to come up with one?
Tim. His name's
Tim. Tim the shadow monster. I got to tell you, the Demogorgon's got nothing on this thing. This thing is gigantic. I don't know. So there's a scene where they're out trick-or-treating, right? And what's his name there has a vision that... this thing is coming for him, and he goes back into the what do you call it there? The upside down.
Yeah,
he gets pushed. And, you were with me? I feel like I've lost you. Are we okay?
Yeah, we're well. You know, Chris, there's some things I need to talk to you about. Okay, I didn't want to do it here, but here we go.
So there's a lot that happens. It looks like Nancy and Steve break up. She drunkenly drops the hammer on him at the Halloween party as well.
Brutal.
She uses some profanity that we won't repeat here because this is a family show. I'm a little scattered, Matt. So overall, what do you think of episode 2? There's a lot of things happen as well. There's a little twist at the end when Dustin finds a something in a trash can, and we all go we go to black. Now, where are you in the series? And give me your thoughts on episode 2 after my scattered rundown of the big events.
All right. So, full disclosure, I am on the penultimate episode of the series. Obviously,
so you did binge this sucker. Then you went all in, huh?
I did. So, I have no self-control. I completely admit that. So, yes, I did. I am very far along, but I did watch it again last night, and just to make sure I was prepared for today. So I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was kind of getting back into the entirety of the of kind of what we liked about the first season. I think one of the real strengths of this show is kind of the interpersonal relationships between everybody in the cast, especially the cast of the 4 boys. Now, obviously, it would be stronger if 11 was there with them, but really, it's kind of that kind of bond they have as kids is fun. And the 80s nostalgia is really kicked into overdrive in this one. You know, the kids dressed up as Ghostbusters. I thought the whole thing about arguing who had to be Winston was hilarious, you know, throughout the whole thing. And then, you know, but then it kind of just moves from there. And I think the most effective parts to it, and I think the most important parts of it, are kind of this revelation that Will disappears into these episodes of the Upside Down and starts getting visions of this massive creature on the horizon that's, he can tell, is full of malice and evil and all that kind of stuff. And we get introduced to, you know, Hawkins Labs' new resident smarmy guy, Paul Reiser, who I think plays an excellent smarmy guy.
We had him in the first episode too, when he had the little session.
That's true. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was really just kind of continuing on the way it should. You know what we should do for these reviews? Let's see how many of these 80s references we can catch, because I've been catching a lot of them as the series progresses, and some of them are a lot more obscure than other ones. So,
all right, I'll have to go through and revisit that then. I mean, the first one, top of my head, well, they call her, you know, just Mad Max in the arcade game itself.
Yeah.
I don't think the music should count. We can try, I guess we can try and find inaccuracies as well if you want to try and do that. Things that shouldn't exist in 1984 that show up.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
okay. Well, I will tell you this. So you're not far along in the series?
No. I've only seen the 2 episodes.
So I want you to, I'm going to minor spoilers, but I'm going to give you some hints. Okay, there are 2 subtle Indiana Jones references. I want to see if you can catch them when they come out. And there are several Alien 3 references that some are subtle, some are right blasting in your face, and I want to see if you can catch those too.
Well, that wouldn't work, because Aliens and Alien 3 are what, 86 and then 90?
Well, yeah, but I mean, they're thrown in.
They're not. Okay, they're not references like an 80s song or a car that shouldn't be in.
No. It's like it's harkening back to something from those movies.
Okay, let's see if I can identify those. So, all right. So I think still, like you said, I think we're still setting up this season, but we get a little more information. I think it's relatively well done. I don't know how long I want to keep 11 separated from the boys. And in fact, 11 and Mike kind of connect almost, maybe not entirely successfully, but she's able to see him for a bit, it appears. I don't know. I think it's good. And then, of course, Hopper is my man. He has a nice moment with Winona Ryder again. I don't know what's up. Sean Astin drops the bomb that he wants to move her and Will to Maine. I was going to say Canada. They want to go to Maine. He's thinking. So I don't know. We're still lots of table setting, but a little more information. And I think a better, stronger episode than last week. Though last week was good, I think this one was more fun because we got all the immediate reset stuff out of the way.
Yeah, we did. And I think, and it's weird to say that a relationship between 2, you know, I don't know how old they are in real life, but let's just say 12, 13-year-olds is the heart of the show. But you're right. The longer they stay apart, the show suffers for it between Mike and 11. I feel like you have to have 11 in that group for it really to kind of mesh as well as the first season did.
Exactly. So, all right. Anything else? I think that's good for me. Were you coming down your letter grade?
I'm going to give it a good B+. I thought it was pretty good.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. I actually had A-. I think mostly maybe just for the Halloween stuff with the guys, the Ghostbusters, the argument, like you said, and then when they walk into the school and nobody else is dressed.
That was fine.
So, and obviously we have some spoilers. Like we should try and avoid big spoilers, I guess. But
Right.
just a general rundown of what happened, and nothing massive or anything. No big changes yet. And you wouldn't expect that. We're only 2 episodes in, though Matt's will be done by the time we catch up with this next.
I will rewatch as appropriate, so I could be on point with you guys.
All right, and I'll do better about those 80s references. That'll be fun to do. All right, Matt, let's move on.
Let's move on.
I made a bold proclamation last week and said that once you saw Mindhunter episode 2, you would be all in.
Yes.
Was that correct?
Yes. This was head and shoulders above first episode, and to be quite honest with you, it's amazing because nothing really happens in this episode. So essentially, the main character, I'm drawing a blank on his name because he's so milquetoast, and I don't know if that's intentional. Holden, yes.
You don't think it's intentional? He just.
No, I think it is. I think it is intentional that he's so bland and disarming that I completely forget about him. But yeah, so Holden basically convinces Tench that he, while they're on a trip to California, that he should be able to go interview Charles Manson, which nobody will let him go do and interview Charles Manson. But while he's in a cop station, somebody suggests that he goes and interviews a guy named Ed Kemper. And Ed Kemper is a guy known as the co-ed killer, where I believe he killed 6 or 7 co-eds, had cut their heads off, had relations with their dead bodies, and as well as cut off the head of his own mother and had sexual relations with the head. So, intrigued, Holden goes down and has a chat with Ed Kemper, and that is it is those scenes with the guy who's playing Ed Kemper is just absolutely unbelievably fantastic. It is vintage prime, the things I love about Fincher, because Fincher directed this episode too, and just everything about it is just tense and just creepy and just wrong, and it's just so good to sit there and watch that whole thing play out.
It is so unnerving, but you cannot take your eyes off of Cameron Britton. He's the one that plays Ed Kemper. And he looks pretty much like the guy. I kind of did some research after watching this episode. And he's this big hulking guy. I guess Ed Kemper was like 6'9".
Yeah.
But yeah, those 2 scenes, the scenes when they're together, and then of course when Tench shows up near one of the last interviews they have with him. And one of my favorite scenes so far in the show is between Holden and Tench, when he's talking how his first meeting with Kemper, he's gonna bring his gun. He's like, you don't want to do that.
Yeah.
He's gonna take it from you, he's gonna kill you, and then he's gonna have sex with your head. I mean, it is crazy. And the scenes though, between him and Kemper, you're right. I mean, you can't take your eyes off of it. It's just not just the way he shot it. It's Britton's performance. It is fascinating. And you can see, too, it's interesting as Jonathan Groff's character, the initial contact he has with Kemper, you can tell he's kind of nervous. He doesn't feel comfortable. But as the later conversations they have, he feels much more confident and he's easier with him. And it's just chilling how just calm Kemper is talking about these horrible things. So like you and I would talk about the weather. And it's crazy. And another thing too, I did some research on, Matt. There's this interesting but out of place opening in the show where a guy comes in, he wants a new roll of tape, but he didn't keep the core of the roll of tape, and he won't give it to him unless he brings that core. So Matt, if you were to Google Wichita, because that's where it's set, in serial killer, you find out whoever that stickler guy is.
Is it the BTK killer?
It is. It's Dennis Radler.
Yeah,
He's the BTK killer. So is this what we're going to see? Is we're also going to have these little 2-3 minute vignettes at the beginning of each show with these other serial killers, and just a little, just setting the table for what we're about to experience in every episode. I don't know. It's fantastic. And then There's two music cues which I really enjoy. Well, one I really enjoyed. One I'm just glad they got out of the way. The talking head psycho killer we knew was going to come up at some point, but I'm glad they got it and used it and get it out of the way. And but 1977 or whatever this is, they're going to use something from Saturday Night Fever at some point. And they didn't go with the Bee Gees, thankfully, though I love the Bee Gees, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. But they went with a fifth of Beethoven, which is a classic from the soundtrack as well. So still, a fantastic episode.
So
I was
good.
really blown away. I give that an A for me for this episode 2 of Mindhunter.
Yeah, I would definitely give this a hard A. Just like everything you said, I mean, the actor who plays Ed Kemper is just so unnerving, and what's so great about it is that he puts the audience at ease too. He's sitting there talking about these horrible things, but he's talking about it in such a detached way. You don't worry about it. But there's a scene later in the episode where he's talking about, like, you know, penetrating various orifices, right? And he stands up and he puts his hand on Holden's neck and shows him, like, you know, how difficult it is to have sex with somebody in their in their throat, and he's squeezing it, and like I was like, oh crap! And you can just see the kind of rigid panic on Holden's face, just like, what is this dude who's got his hand around my neck going to do? Because there was nothing he could do. It's absolutely fantastic. It was so good.
So we'll see. Hopefully, this isn't the pinnacle of the season, and this is just a big of what we're going to expect as we go through.
I will say this. I know somebody who watched it, and they said they were very impressed throughout the entire season. So this hopefully bodes well for the rest of us.
All right, we'll see how it goes. So that was episode 2, season 1 of Mindhunter. 2 great series, Matt, and I'm really happy that we're talking about them. I can't wait to see the next episodes of both. Are you going to try and binge Mindhunter now that you've finished up almost with Stranger Things? Are you going to get ahead of me again?
I'm going to try and slow it down. You know, I'm gonna try and keep it one at a time, and I am gonna go back and watch Stranger Things as it happens. Stranger Things,
I understand.
It's a second season that I've been waiting for a long time. It's just, you know, I had to dive right into it.
Sounds good. I understand.
Yeah.
So that's the first front and that's also the first run focus for this week.
All right.
Shoot us an email at feedback@thefirstrun.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts, both obviously on Stranger Things and Mindhunter. What's coming up next? What serial killers will Holden and Bill encounter next week? I cannot wait to find out. What's going to happen with 11? How many waffles can one person eat? We're going to find out.
Is she going to have like scurvy or something? Because she's definitely not getting all the vitamins that she needs.
Exactly. That's going to be the big show for this week then, and we'll see you all again soon. Take care.
Bye.
Now talking is cheap. Freedom ain't free.